Yeah, always a solid good thing. And this is also a solid episode 96 of Weighing In with Travis Hartman. I am B Money, the producer. That over there is Weekend Trav, coming to you from Orlando, Florida. I'm coming to you from wherever I'm coming from. It looks like the beach. But this is the #1 beards, bourbon, and boxing podcast shot in Orlando, Florida, specifically Laureate Park, specifically in a boxing gym. Second floor of the boxing gym in the podcast room. Shot on a Sunday or Monday. Today is actually Tuesday. Dropping on
Wednesday morning, 7:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time
in the world.
world.
In the world. So, Weekend Trav, we got a lot to get into. And, we have a fight from this past weekend with heavyweights. We got the ladies fighting this coming weekend. But we need to jump in because this is breaking news as of today, Tuesday. This is dropping Wednesday. The podcast is Jake Paul taking on Anderson the Spider Silva, former UFC middleweight champion. Boxing match, October 29th, Phoenix, Arizona. The rumors were true. It's something we had talked about weeks and weeks ago that's a potential future opponent for Jake Paul, and it has come true for sure. We got Jake Paul, Anderson Silva, October 29th, 8 rounds, either 185, 187. I think the weight's still a little bit debatable. Phoenix, Arizona. Weekend Trap. Give me the quick first take when you heard this news.
I would have rather seen the Tommy Fury or the Hasim Rockman Jr. like us all. But I think that this is a solid matchup, though, B Money. Anderson Silva is a battle-hardened combat veteran.
Mm-hmm.
And he also, what most people don't know is he's fought complete pro boxing matches now for the past couple of years, and that's it. And he actually beat Chavez Jr., who's a former world champion and currently probably in rehab. I get that. He's obviously he was in rehab. I don't know if he's out or not. That's why I say that. But he was obviously not 100% the Chavez Jr. that we probably have seen years and years and years ago. However, that's still a pretty solid win, B Money, for a guy like Anderson Silva. And so I think that's going to give Jake Paul a lot of trouble. He's in with a veteran. He's in with a guy that I don't think Jake Paul can knock out. I just don't. However, we didn't think he could knock out Tyron Woodley either. I thought he could beat Tyron Woodley, yes, but I didn't think he was going to knock Tyron Woodley out like he did. So he's proved us wrong there for sure. But to the fight, I think it's a good fight. I think it's a okay fight. I think it's a big step up for Jake Paul. But to be fair, any veteran that he fights at this point is a big step up because the guy's still young in his career. So I think this is a good step up. I think it's a good fight. I don't know if it's going to kind of whet the appetite of the average fan to watch Anderson Silva, but it might. I don't know. It's solid though.
We'll see what else is on the card when they kind of formulate or comes together October 29th. I'd imagine it's on Showtime because he's still under contract there.
Yes, it is.
This is a very intriguing matchup for me, Weekend Trav. Obviously, with some of my background being more on the MMA side. From years past, I was a big, I want to say massive, but big and knowing Anderson Silva back in the day, back in his highlight reel days. This is a dangerous fight. And what I mean by that, Weekend Trav, is not that Jake Paul is necessarily going to definitely lose this or anything like that, but the danger to me has to do with the fact that this might be the kind of victory that he just kind of ekes out, where it doesn't have that highlight, it doesn't have the talking factor. When the fight's all said and done, has now the circus appeal of what Jake Paul has become as it wore off. And so I think that's, to me, the danger of this matchup is that it could be boring. It could end up being kind of boring.
Yeah, you mean from a business standpoint. I get you.
Yeah. I think, this is to me, it's a toss-up on who could possibly win this. Anderson Silva is not an easy win at all.
No, for sure. I agree as well.
He's smooth. He's a great striker. He's, proficient Muay Thai, so that's obviously a different discipline. But going in there with a guy like that is a bit different than a Tyron Woodley. It's a bit different than the other dude that he beat first.
Ben Askren.
Askren.
Yeah, because Silva's got a good stand-up.
Correct.
That's why it's different. He's got a very good stand-up as a discipline. So that's why this is a very interesting matchup.
What do the haters say, Weekend Trav? This news dropped today. So what's the word from the hater camp?
I haven't really heard too many hater things. Well, other than the fact that they're like, oh, he's fighting another, washed up UFC guy, which I wouldn't say Silva's washed up, but
he's old though.
He is. And so they wouldn't be too far off in saying that, but I think only thing they'd be off in. And he's older, yes, and he's a former UFC guy, yes. Is he washed up? I don't think so.
I mean,
To
we're
be fair,
talking.
I don't.
I mean, let's be honest here. Jake Paul is fighting a 47-year-old man. Okay, that's different. I mean, yes, Father Time does take its toll, and yes, he just took on Chavez Jr. But how old is Chavez Jr.?
Chavez Jr. is in his early 30s, so he's
But
not.
but
Well, actually,
how
I
many
would say
years?
34, 35.
But how many years does drug abuse add to your clock?
And exactly, and that's what I'm saying is that yes, even though Anderson Silva beat Chavez Jr., he obviously didn't beat a great
A
Chavez Jr.
prime, yeah.
However, though, even an average former world champion, because all of Chavez Jr.'s critics, he did win a world title, and he almost beat Sergey Garcia or Sergey Martinez
Yeah.
in a massive fight. So the guy can fight. Even an washed up essentially fighter, you would think would be able to beat a UFC guy coming over to boxing, which tells me that yes, Chavez Jr. obviously wasn't at his peak for sure, especially since he's in rehab now. But it goes to show me that Anderson Silva can fight a little bit, because even a
Yeah.
washed-up boxer would be able to get through that fight. And Anderson Silva, took it to him. So I think that it shows a little bit both ways there. Yes, Chavez Jr. is a little bit faded, a little bit washed up, and dealing with drug abuse and substance abuse. 100%. Yes, that is correct. However, a guy like Silva, I thought Chavez Jr. should have beat Silva. If you told me before they went into that fight, even with his issues going on, I thought he
Right.
should have beat him. But guess what? He didn't. So I think that a very experienced veteran like Silva, going in to fight a guy that's relatively very inexperienced. Jake Paul is very inexperienced. So
Right.
I think I think it's a 50-50 fight. And anybody can get mad at me for saying that. I don't really care. But I think it's a 50-50 fight.
I
In
think
my
right now,
opinion, I think it is.
honestly, I think right now it is. It's, I mean, that's the quick response, right? That's the, if you want to go in football terms, the Monday morning quarterback response.
Yeah.
Is that I think personally, it's kind of a coin flip right now until we really dig into the details a bit. Age is going to be a factor, but the stage isn't a factor. Anderson Silva is used to the big stage, so I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think the guys that we had talked about him possibly fighting, the Fury and the other dude, all these guys, the boxers that actually just didn't pan out, I think, to me personally, the stage would have been too big for those guys. I think that would have been a problem. But with a guy
Yeah.
like Anderson Silva, I don't think that's going to be an issue for him, the stage necessarily. There's going to be a lot of eyeballs and cameras on this thing just because of who it is. It's
Yeah.
not going to be the best fight in the world. We know that, but it's going to be a big media draw. We know that for a fact. But like I said, that's why I think there's a bit of a danger to this matchup. I think for the most part he beats Tommy Fury. I think for the most part he probably would have beat a Rockman Jr. This is a little different. To me, this is a little different. This is a little bit of a dangerous territory. And if this derails that train, that's tough for the notoriety of this guy, of one Jake Paul. So we shall see,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, for those very reasons, that's probably why this fight will sell, is
Yeah.
because of that very factor that what if easily, not easily, but very, very likely, Anderson Silva could beat Jake Paul. But in the same flip of that coin, very likely Jake Paul could beat Anderson Silva. So it's fun going into a fight not really knowing for sure. And I
Sure.
think that's what makes combat sports pretty exciting, is when these guys go in and they're pretty much a locked at a head-to-head. We don't know what's going to happen. And even if we do know what's going to happen, upsets happen all the time. And this is what I always tell everybody. We can do all the predictions we want,
Yep.
but unfortunately, boxing matches are not fought on paper. They are fought in the ring. And that's why predictions can go out the window 99% of the time. We get lucky sometimes and get them right, but combat sports, it's only a centimeter, an inch, a blink of an eye can change an entire career and a fight. So I think that's why this fight is actually interesting. And I think it will sell a little bit more than possibly like Hasim Rockman Jr.
Right.
But
Oh,
Tommy Fury, I
definitely
think,
will. Yeah.
but to be fair, I think Tommy Fury would have sold, actually, to be fair, because he's a big hit over in England. He's also Tyson Fury's half brother or whatever it is. And he's also a reality TV star. So I think that would have sold too. However, this fight, I think, is more crucial to the progression of a Jake Paul
Well, so
in
let
his
me give you
career.
the interesting, and I just looked it up as you were talking. I went over to the gambling side of things. Okay.
Mhm. Okay.
Jake Paul plus 110, Anderson Silva minus 140 favorite. Anderson Silva right now is the favorite. Straight
It's
up.
not shocking to me. It's not. That's why I think it's a positive fight.
We shall see. I think, but you're right. I think it's going to sell better than the other ones would have. Maybe a Tommy Fury would have been a better fight overall from a boxing standpoint, but I think from a sellability, this one will do it because you still have that draw of the MMA crowd that wants to see this guy fold and fall.
Yep.
We love Anderson Silva. Okay, he had such a phenomenal career,
He's a
and
pretty
you know what?
beloved guy. Yeah.
Yes, exactly, and so skilled. I mean, he was a breath of fresh air of that weight class in the middleweights in the UFC when he entered that. Oh, he's just amazing. Just a knockout artist. It was incredible. Kind of a showman inside the octagon as well, and actually got him in trouble by being a showman. That's how he got knocked out, was by kind of a fluke thing. Anyway, so
Do
I
you
think this is a
remember?
pretty interesting fight. We have a lot of time, weeks to go before this thing shakes out. I'm more curious at this point, we can Trav, what else will be on that card?
Yeah, for sure. And you know what I think is why Anderson Silva is so beloved too is he recovered and went through one of the most brutal, crazy breaks of
The
his
leg
leg
injury, yeah.
that I've ever seen in my life. Like that B money. Oh my gosh, maybe that needs to be on our thumbnail when we start this. Is that picture, that still picture of the broke leg, because that's brutal. But that's why that guy I think is going to sell, because if anybody were to root for a guy to beat Jake Paul, it'd be a guy like Anderson Silva, because I would be okay with that, because I think he's a good guy and I think he could deserve a break like that. No
That's
pun
our
intended.
expert analysis, folks. We like the Anderson Silva matchup. He's a good guy. Okay, so we're in on this fight. But we can Trav. That
I'm
just
not
dropped
saying
today.
Jake Paul's a bad guy,
I
but you know
know,
what
I
I'm
know.
saying.
I make fun and we kid a lot here, but you know what? It also gets some clicks. We'll be honest about that too. Speaking of clicks, thank you if you're watching this. If you're not, well, then you can't hear me. You can't even see what I'm saying. So chances are you're watching this, but you may not be subscribed to our channel. So if you are not, please do so below. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button on the video, forward it on to your friends and family. Say, hey, these knuckleheads, they're talking about Jake Paul again or whatever. Fine. But subscribe to the channel, please. And for those that have, we appreciate your support, whether you're finding us on YouTube or Rumble, or even listening to our melodic voices there on the audio side of things, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Alexa, all that good stuff. So we can travel.
If you're still with us, thank you.
Let's go ahead and shift gears here, because we just wanted to hit that headline. But we're going to shift gears here, and we're going to talk heavyweight action. Over this past weekend, we had
Let's get it.
kind of the eliminator match, if you want to call it that, between one Andy Ruiz and as well as Luis Ortiz, and that came to us, I believe, where'd they fight? California, LA, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Yep. So we had Andy Ruiz Jr., Luis Ortiz, King Kong Ortiz.
King Kong.
Okay, taking on the Destroyer, LA, California, heavyweight matchup. And I know we kind of tried to make a side bet. It never really came to fruition, but I do know that I would have lost that no matter what, because I said we were going under a certain amount of rounds. Yeah. You said over. The fight ended up going to the judges, which is almost the worst thing that could happen in a heavyweight fight. Weekend Trav, you watched it. We watched the highlights. We kind of went through round by round. Give me your expert, professional thoughts.
I thought actually so I didn't get to watch it live. I won't lie. I was in New York. I was busy. My wife's at the US Open. So I was there busy doing stuff. So I didn't get to watch it live, which is good though. I don't mind that sometimes. Sometimes away from all the hoopla and emotion and just watch it by myself with no commentators, no nothing. And I did that. And I actually originally had a very harsh criticism of Andy Ruiz because I thought that he should have done more. And obviously, I thought I should have stopped the guy because Ortiz is clearly he's on the downside of his career. He's still a very good heavyweight, downside of his career. But when I watched the fight, I was actually pretty impressed with Andy Ruiz still, surprisingly. But the only downside to all that is that Ortiz is still a very he's a gatekeeper for sure, and he's not letting that gate go. because he's still tough, man. He's not going. He goes down, but he gets up. Like he's a tough, very tough, talented, skillful guy.
An
But I
overused an overused term in our business, Weekend Trav, is durable. My
yes,
goodness, if there's any if
yes,
there's a picture or video definition of durable, it was this fight when you looked at
yeah,
just up and down the rounds. So Weekend Travel allude to this. 3 knockdowns. Luis Ortiz was knocked down 3 times, but frankly, Weekend Travel, he still won half of the rounds.
yep. On my official scorecard, which actually coincided with the other two scorecards, so I was on point with that. Was I scored at 114, 111, and
Mm-hmm.
that's actually 6 rounds to 6 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
But since Luis Ortiz went down
Mm-hmm.
3 times, he loses those rounds out. One round he went down twice in a round, so that round would have been scored 10 points to 7. Okay. And then he went down in another round that would have scored at 10 rounds or 10 points to 8 points. Right.
Yep.
So that's the only how Andy Ruiz won. Okay. Otherwise, if he didn't score those knockdowns, this fight would have been either, depending on who won those rounds on the knockdown rounds, which I
Right.
think Andy Rez would have won them probably still because he was busier in those rounds. But this easily could have went the other way. Ortiz could have easily won this fight, or this could have been something like a split draw, because the official scorecards were, I think, 2 114 111s, which is my scorecard too. And the other
Mm-hmm.
one was 113 112. And on my scorecard, I had a couple of rounds where I even put in my notes, I said these could be swing rounds, which
Yeah.
could have went to either fighter. So what that 113 112 is dangerous for a guy like Andy Ruiz, because if he just would have knocked him down one time, he loses on that scorecard.
Yeah.
So the 114 111, if he doesn't get any knockdowns, he loses on that scorecard. So I think it was a dangerously close fight for Andy Ruiz. He did look pretty good in his moments. He looked snappy. He looked pretty fast for being a kind of a chubbier, looser, overweight looking heavyweight. To be
Right.
fair, he does.
Always
I get
has.
it. He's not, and he always has for sure. I'm not a big fan of that. You are an elite professional athlete. I'm just still never a big fan of that, B Money. I'm
I
just
love
not.
I love leading up to the fight and all like the promo work and the picture work and stuff. And they're like, man, he looks ripped going into this fight. I'm like, man.
Whoever said that needs to be punched in the face.
They're like, look at it. He has abs. I'm like, yeah, maybe in comparison to what he looked like before, but he's
No.
still not in great shape for heavyweight. Um,
He was jiggling. I
there,
watched the fight. He was jiggling.
there's one thing that I walked away with from that fight, Weekend Trav, and it's this: is that well, 2 things. Number one, I think you're right. The gatekeeper kind of talk with Ortiz makes a lot of sense there. But also, what I walked away with is Ruiz Jr. He's on the outside looking in. I mean, there's only a few names that should be tossed around for a gold at this point. He's not one of them right now. That's not to say it can't change, but right now, he's not one of the 3 guys. Call it 3 or 4 guys. He just isn't. If he would have won in superb fashion, and don't get me wrong, 3 knockdowns is a nice deal.
It's impressive still, yeah.
But to get 2 of them in the one round and not finish that thing off, that says a lot. So, and it says a lot about both guys, I guess. But to me, my walk away is for being a former champ, for everything he's accomplished and trying to regain that glory, he's on the outside still looking in.
Yeah. And you know what? Maybe that's a good chip on his shoulder. Then maybe he can use that to motivate him even more, because I think you're right. The heavyweight division right now does not go through Andy Ruiz. That's for sure. Even though he's a former world champion, he beat Anthony Joshua, but that win is not looking as impressive as it used to me. The win over Anthony Joshua, the first one. But listen though, Andy Ruiz, he must hit so hard though, because he's putting these guys down, and not very many people have put Ortiz down. And only one is putting down, and he stayed down. And that was a Deontay Wilder, which we all know is probably still to this day, he's probably the hardest puncher in the heavyweight division. Right. Even though I don't think he's the best heavyweight in the division, he might go down as probably the heaviest puncher in that division. That dude's got game-changing power. He does. Too bad that he never kind of honed his skills in to add to that power.
Listen, yeah, and you're right. Deontay Wilder is the best guy to take to the carnival, to hit that machine with the punching bag. The best guy for that. But he's not 100%. Necessarily the best guy to put in between the ropes. So
now when you're fighting smart, intellectually smart, talented, physically gifted boxers will
Yeah.
outbox him every time.
But speaking of, it sounds like that's going to be kind of the step forward match now with Andy Ruiz Jr. is Deontay Wilder. As
Love
I
it.
want to call it a full on call out, but it was pretty much that was what was drummed up after the
Yeah.
fight, right over the
Yeah.
weekend.
Because
Was
I think Wilder was there, right? Because he was
yes, he
kind of
was
supporting
there.
Luis Ortiz.
He was there to support Ortiz.
Yep.
It seemed like they were kind of buddy buddy leading into the fight. So I guess that's going to be that. And frankly, I'll watch that. I'll watch that all day long.
You know what? And I'm you're right. Even though I don't think Deontay Wilder is the best heavyweight in the division, and I also don't think Anthony Joshua is either. Clearly, they're both not, right? There's still actually a couple really interesting fights that I would watch those guys in.
Sure.
That's why the heavyweight division is still kind of cool. That's why I'm kind of glad boxing is going in this direction, B Money, where a couple of losses don't derail your entire career.
Right.
And I like that because I do think that even though Anthony Joshua didn't beat Usyk, even though he lost to Reyes once, I don't think he's the best heavyweight in the world. No. But do I think he can contend possibly with some of them still? Yes. I think he's still up there. I think I would love to see him with Deontay Wilder. I think he could beat Deontay Wilder, but I also think Deontay Wilder could beat him, but a fantastic fight. Whoever, the cool thing about that is maybe Tyson Fury just called out Anthony Joshua. I would watch it. I think it's cool. I would watch that fight. That's what I'm saying.
We've
I would
talked
watch
about
that
that before, the King of England match. That was months and months and months,
Yeah.
over almost a year ago, and
You knew
never
it was
came
going
to
to happen
fruition.
eventually.
But now he referenced it as something else. Tyson Fury did. That the guy, the semi-retired athlete he is. So we can travel. That was the heavyweight matchup. That was from this past weekend. You know what? And I wish we would have had a real formal bet because then I would have lost and I would have to be. I don't know what would be happening. But no one commented.
You're
no one
lucky
gave
I
us
got
any
busy.
feedback. No one gave us any feedback. You know, so
This is true. So you guys' fault. I could have had a leg up on this bet because I lost the one the previous weekend because B Money picked Usyk over Anthony Joshua, and I am now like 0 for 3 in picks with Anthony Joshua. Did you know that? Because I picked Ruiz
Yep.
to lose to Joshua. He
Yep.
screwed me. I picked Anthony Joshua to beat Usyk the first time. He
Yep.
screwed me. I picked Anthony Joshua to beat Usyk the second time. He screwed me. The only other one I missed out on was Lomachenko and got upset by Teofimo Lopez. But other than that, Anthony Joshua is literally the bane of my existence right now in my picks.
So if there's any takeaway, ladies and gentlemen at home, it's this. Don't bet on Anthony Joshua.
I get tricked.
Once Weekend Trav is on that boat, do not get on the boat.
Yep.
Sell your ticket. Do not get on. Do not
listen. That's a sinking ship, guys. I sank
is.
that ship and I went down with it, and I'm literally underwater right now. I'm drastically fighting to get out.
He's bailing water out as we speak on Anthony Joshua. So whatever is next for him, great. Whatever's next for Andy Ruiz Jr., great. Whatever's next for Luis Ortiz, great. I mean, so those are names. Those are good.
I'd still watch those guys in fights.
But ultimately, we still want to see the main heavyweight draw, which who knows if we ever will, and that's Usyk and Tyson Fury. We will see. Weekend Trav, shifting gears once again, and we're going to talk ladies. Okay, that's this weekend. We got Savannah Marshall taking on Claressa Shields, and then we also have Alycia Baumgardner taking on Mikaela Mayer, both the same card. That's on September 10th in England. Okay, so I don't have the times in front of me, and I don't even have the network. So the time is going to be a little weird on Saturday, but
it'll be DAZN.
Yeah, it'll be DAZN. So those are two massive women's boxing matches this week, and a lot of bad blood here with Savannah Marshall, Claressa Shields. They're trying to sell the other one a bit more on some of the bad blood stuff, but no one's really interested in that one. They're interested in Marshall and Shields. Weekend Trav, we're going to talk for a couple minutes here on this one. What's your take? What's your take on that main event there? Savannah Marshall, Claressa Shields.
You're putting me on the spot there.
Oh, ultimately.
Yeah, that's actually, so I actually have some inside knowledge on what Savannah Marshall looks like live because our fighter that you actually helped me with, Ashley Curry, I took her over to Newcastle, England and fought Savannah Marshall on like 2 days notice, 3 days notice, short notice. But Savannah Marshall can fight. And she also is, I think, the last person to ever beat Claressa Shields, and it was in the amateurs. So I think, and they've been going back and forth. This is very heated. This is a big fight for women's boxing because Claressa Shields has been trying. She's named herself the GOAT, greatest woman of all time. It's fine. It's publicity. She's trying to promote herself, but I don't think she's the GOAT. I think Layla Ali still has a leg up on her. However, I think times are changing and women's professional boxing has gotten more competitive,
Sure.
and it is getting the notoriety that they've been trying to get for years and years and years. And now I think it's there. And that's also in part to the undercard, which is Mikaela Mayer as well. She's really pushed that envelope, and she's shown that, you can be pretty and tough because she's both and talented. But back to the Savannah Marshall, Claressa Shields. I think that Claressa Shields has the better boxing ability. And honestly, I can see her outboxing Savannah Marshall. I think Savannah Marshall is stronger, but also a little slower than Claressa Shields. So if Claressa Shields goes out there and boxes how she knows how to box, she's 2-time gold medalist in the Olympics, which is phenomenal. I think that she wins this fight in a decision. I 100% would bet the house on this one, be money, that it does go the distance.
Okay.
Okay. Claressa Shields doesn't knock people out, and that's been her biggest knock, and that's honestly why she doesn't get the ratings that she wants to deserve. She thinks that she deserves. She doesn't knock people out. She doesn't. She's got like a couple of knockouts.
So let me toss this at you, Weekend Trav, because to me the lead up to this has been quite emotional. There's been a lot of emotion tied to this fight, and a lot of the talking back and forth and the showing up to each other's stuff and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Do we think someone like a Claressa Shields, who has, had said her piece on social media and stuff like that, do we think that she can keep her head about her? Do we think that she can stick to a boxing game plan, or do the emotions get the best of her in this thing?
No, because I think that, yes, we do see all of her talking and all of her, she kind of runs her head, is what I call that. She does. She runs her head a lot and runs her mouth a lot. But she's trying to oversell fights because she's trying to make that big, big, big time game changing money. And she's trying to sell. She's trying to sell herself. And I get that. But no, I think she'll be fine. I think her nerves will be fine. She'll be calm because she's been in these big moments for a while. Like I said, she's one of, I think, the only person that I ever have known that has, especially, well, women for sure, that has won 2 gold medals. And the reason why is because Olympics are every 4 years. You win 1 gold medal, usually you go off and turn pro. She won 2 gold medals, which is actually phenomenal. And now she's the world champion in a couple different divisions. She's moved up and she's everywhere else. She's doing phenomenal. She's unified titles. She is good. But yes, I think she'll keep her calm. I do. I don't think that's going to be as much of a factor as they try to play it up to be, because both of those people, like Savannah Marshall and Claressa Shields, they've actually been boxing a really long time. So whatever emotions that are out there, when that bell rings and they step in that squared circle, I think it's all going to go out the window, and they're both going to get down to business, and they're going to keep calm and do what they know how to do.
Well, let me tell you what the gamblers think their Weekend Trav, because I like to do this.
Shields has got to be a favorite.
Not a massive clear-cut favorite, because we have Savannah Marshall, which is mainly the favorite, -125, whereas Claressa Shields is -105. So there isn't necessarily a full-on underdog on that situation, but it seems to be the money's favoring Savannah Marshall that on this one. Yeah, I think you're right on the distance thing. 8.5 rounds seems to be kind of like the mark. This is, by the way, I'm looking at the rest of the fights. I think this is a full-on ladies card. If I'm not,
I think so. They're billing it as that as well. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it looks like it. And so there was so to me, not a real clear-cut favorite, a hard gamble on this one. I'll take a look a little as we get closer to Saturday, but I mean, we shall see. We shall see. I hope there's a bit more fury in this thing when they enter the ring. I don't want to see a decision. I want to see the angst and the anger and all the vitriol come to a head. I want to see that Weekend Trav, the dirty, the ugliness. That's what I want to see.
Well, listen, I think that Claressa Shields tries that, and she tries to go out there and knock people out. She just doesn't have that power. She doesn't have that snap on her punches. So it's not because she doesn't try. But
you know who does? Savannah Marshall. She does. So that's so she has never.
It is very dangerous, but she's never fought in the pros somebody as good as Claressa Shields, and their amateur fight was ages ago.
Yep.
And she did win, but this is the pro game. It's a totally different game. These guys are definitely on a different level now, and it's just a great fight for women's boxing. But unfortunately, this is what Claressa Shields has ran into, and Savannah Marshall, I'm sure. But after this fight, B Money, who else is there?
What's next? Yeah.
That's exactly right. So
I mean,
hopefully it's a close enough fight or it's exciting enough, just like Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor, that even though Serrano lost that fight on a decision, me and you both and the rest of the world was like, oh my gosh, that was an amazing fight. And it went the distance, but it was an amazing fight.
and we would want to see that again. I don't know if we'll
100%.
see this one again.
No, and I don't because I've watched Claressa Shields and I'm going to get hated for this. I know I am, but whatever. I don't like to watch her fights. They don't excite me. They don't draw me in. They're just, I don't know how to explain it, but in my opinion, she doesn't have that it factor. And that's something that I've talked about with all athletes. And this is something I'm going to take credit for is there was a tennis player. His name is Nick Kyrgios. Okay. He just made finals of Wimbledon and he just upset the number one male tennis player in the world.
Yep.
But right before that, he was at Wimbledon
Yep.
finals.
Yep.
But my point is about 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I don't know anything about tennis, but I know that it factor in athletes and people. And I told Irina, which is my wife on the tennis circuit, I looked at her and I was like, this kid's going to be a superstar one day. You watch, he's going to be a superstar. He's 27 years old now. He seemed to calm his mental down a little bit and control it. And now look where this kid's at. And I referenced that because I don't believe Claressa Shields has that it factor. Is she insanely talented? Yes. Is she's undefeated? Yes. She's got 2 gold medals. You can't take those away. She's very, very good, but she doesn't have that it factor that makes me want to watch her.
So the trash talk factor weekend, Trav. I've talked about this with other people and other athletes. Sometimes it comes across a little goofy. Like Ryan Garcia, when he tries to trash talk, it comes across goofy to me.
Yeah, you're
when
not
Claressa Shields tries to trash talk, it just comes across a little goofy. I don't know. It just doesn't add up for me. It just doesn't feel like, I don't feel it. Like the it factor, like you said, I just don't feel the energy, the vibe. And so that's why when she's been trash talking leading into this thing, I'm like, it's goofy. It's just goofy.
Yeah, I mean, some people are natural trash talkers. You're talking about Platinum Mike Perry. That guy's a natural trash talker.
Tank Davis, good trash. There's good. Floyd Mayweather's a great trash talker.
When they talk, you're listening, and it doesn't feel forced.
I'm putting her in the Ryan Garcia trash talk camp where it's like, stop talking. just do your thing.
Yeah, I mean, and I know what you're saying. I just honestly, for her, I don't pay enough attention to it anymore. I'm just like, I'm over it. I'll watch her fights to give it a chance. I keep giving her chances. I keep watching, but every time I finish watching her, I'm just like, okay, cool. Yeah, you won. I'm like, huh. And that's, I don't know what else to say about that. Is I'm being 100% honest. I'm a consumer now. Okay. I know I'm a professional boxer, but I'm a consumer now. I watch boxing because as a fan now, even though I'm an analyst, we watch it as a fan now. I would not say that I would love to watch her fights. You know who I want to watch fight is Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano.
Yeah.
I love that fight. Mikaela Mayer, she leaves a little bit to be desired as well. Her fights do, but she's kind of coming on a little bit more with, like, she is sitting down in her punches a little more. So you can see a little bit of a difference there. She's got a phenomenal coach as why too. Coach Al Mitchell. That guy's been around for ages. That guy used to run a USA boxing program out of Michigan. That dude's phenomenal. Love that guy. He's coached many world champions, many Olympians. But he's doing work. He's doing wonders with her for sure. But to be fair, the same thing. I don't know that I walk away from Mikaela Mayer fights and I'm like, oh, I'll watch her next one. I don't know that either because she fights 10-round fights and I'm like, So she's in the same boat as Claressa Shields. She's on that precipice right now, which I learned that word from you last week, by the way. She's on the precipice of being irrelevant or being just a pretty face.
Yeah. Well, we can travel. I'm also on the precipice. I'm on the precipice of episode 96 being complete. Okay.
I like it. I like it.
So ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you tuning in. We talked a little bit about the heavyweight fight from this past weekend. We're talking a little bit of the ladies coming up fighting on DAZN this coming weekend. And then also obviously the news that dropped today, which is Tuesday. You guys are seeing this Wednesday or later. The fact that Jake Paul is taking on one Anderson Silva on October 29th in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona. Should be an interesting matchup there. We can travel. We'll have plenty to talk about leading into that as October progresses. Next week, we're going to spend a lot of time on Canelo Triple G. I feel like we've almost just been kind of not talking about it on purpose, but next week, episode 97, that's got to be it. It's coming in. It's coming in for the third time, and that's going to be a major, major fight.
Yep. That's a big fight. It's on the heels of Canelo coming off of a loss. It's on the heels of this is a trilogy. It's on the heels of the last two fights were super close. So Canelo has a chip on his shoulder. He does have a lot to prove to himself. I know that that's what he's thinking right now. But to us, I think he's a Hall of Famer already.
Yeah.
But I definitely know that the way he thinks and the way he ticks, he wants to prove something. He's coming into this fight to prove a point.
So stay with us, folks. Next week, episode 97, we're going to be really honed in on that, focused in a lot. We'll have obviously the updates on the ladies' fights, but we're going to spend a bit more time on Canelo Triple G on the next episode. But this is episode 96, Weekend Trav, and we're wrapping this thing up. We're putting a bow on it. We're tying it up. All pretty. Okay?
That's what he said.
Is it? Well, it is, because that's that's what I said. That's my pronoun is he, him. So Weekend Trav, any quick final thoughts before we wrap this thing fully up?
I think I'm just gonna let you wrap that up after that because you about opened a whole can of worms, and I'm gonna stick to boxing because that's what I know. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna shut up and box.
There you go. That is our suggestion to Claressa Shields as well, and Savannah Marshall. Just shut up and box, right?
Ooh. We're in so much trouble. We're in so much trouble.
Ever. So on behalf of TH Boxing, Gulfstream Financial, and IF Enterprises, we thank you for joining us. If you yet to subscribe, please do so below on the YouTube site, on Rumble, or follow our content on the audio site, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Alexa, Google Podcasts, etc., etc. We're all over the place. Thank you for tuning in. Hit the like button below. If you want to be alerted of next time we drop some content on YouTube, hit the bell icon too. We appreciate the support. And that's it, Weekend Trav. So I'm going to say it. That over there is Weekend Trav.
That there is B Money, aka producer, aka the man that runs the show. Also, recently certified by ESA to be a personal trainer. Congratulations, brother.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I like wearing many hats, including this one. All right, that's it. Go Florida State. Go Noles. God bless. Go Packers.